afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Chaitali Desai here, and I want to know, have you ever been curious about ghostwriting? What it is, who it's for, and did you know you can even use ghostwriting to create screenplays? If any of that is so exciting to you like it was for me, then this is for you. Welcome to the Beauty Confidential Lounge. Again, I am Chaitali Desai, and today we have a special guest, Laura Elliott. Welcome, Laura. How are you?
I'm just great. It's so great to be here, Chaitali. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, yes, I'm so excited. I think what you're going to share today is going to help so many people, even from whether
Mhm.
they decide to work with you or just understanding the benefits and actually what ghostwriting is. So, if you don't mind, before we get into all of that, I'd love to know a little bit more about you and share with the community.
Oh, yeah. So basically, what ghostwriters do is they help people give a voice to their own stories. And sometimes that's like somebody who's running a business, like an entrepreneur who has a real movement in the world and they just don't know how to put it on paper.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's like an adventure or a memoir, or I do a lot of true stories. So I tell about journeys of the heart, that type of thing, where people are telling family stories, perhaps. And some of them get quite complicated. Some are big histories, some are different kinds of moments. So, I help people. I give a voice to the voiceless is basically what I say, because a lot of people don't, it's a new thing. They don't know how to write, but they don't know. They want to write a book. They know it's an important thing to do. They see the potential for how it's going to change their world and their business and take it to the next level. They don't know how to do it, and it's new. And so people like me step in and we write in their voice. And a lot of times it's really amazing. People don't even know how to begin or how to get it on the page because they don't know their voice yet. So we do a little bit of practicing. And so that's how I help write the books for them. Yeah.
There is so much to unpack in that. So, let's back
That's
up.
true.
First of all, the voice to the voiceless is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. It's a mission of mine.
I can completely relate to that, especially as women. It is something that is so paramount because we get
Mm,
lost sometimes. I'll speak from my own experience and from my clients. We get lost.
yeah.
Who are we and what do we actually do, right? So I think it's
Right.
freaking brilliant that you help with this. Now, you're saying ghostwriting can be used in all different facets. I actually didn't even stop to think about entrepreneurship. A lot of my listeners are entrepreneurs. So can we delve
Mhm.
into that for a
Yeah,
second? And
sure.
then I want to open it
Absolutely.
up to even bigger,
Yeah. Yeah.
a
Oh,
bigger
totally.
context.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
how does it benefit entrepreneurs?
Okay, so ultimately, a book can reach many more people than we can ourselves. I mean, we go and we do speaking events, and we, talk to maybe 1,000 people, and they maybe might talk to you about it, or personally, or interviews like this. But a book can get to everyone, everywhere, all around the world. And it's kind of like a brochure. It's got everything that your mission is in the world, so people can really understand it and they can wrap their heads around it, and then you can benefit their life and inspire them through that book to make their own changes that you could never do one-on-one with somebody, right? Or they might not work at your company, but they're going to take that idea and that inspiration and use it in their company. And I do a lot of entrepreneurial work. My degree is actually in accountancy. And I live very close to Silicon Valley.
Wow.
And I also have an experience being in the entrepreneurial world. I had the great fortune of being in a financial startup in the 90s in the dot-com era,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's still going today. It was acquired by NCR. So I was like the ninth employee, and it grew, and Oracle came in, and it grew and grew. And
Oh,
so
you lived the Silicon dream, right? That's
Right,
freaking
yeah, so
awesome.
that's one facet of people I write for,
Yeah.
and then, after that experience, I got into, writing, and then I worked at E! Entertainment Television and, in the .com side, E! Online,
Yeah.
and I got the opportunity to be exposed to E! True Hollywood Story, and that gave me a love for getting the story behind the story, and as a consequence, I would interview lots of different celebrities, go on junkets for movies, that type of thing.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and then I would work at the LA Times, where I took my storytelling to hard news, investigative journalism, crime, that type of thing. So I have this ability through all of the work that I've done in all of the different spheres to
Yeah.
take complicated ideas and distill them and make them simple and easy to understand for people. And like I would say, when I wrote for this minority entrepreneur who's just rocking the blockchain and cryptocurrency world in the healthcare space, that was a complicated topic. And you say for some people, yeah, blockchain, what, it's like, or cryptocurrency, it's hard
Yeah.
to
It
understand. It's
fall
out
it's like deer
there.
in headlights.
Yeah, it's something that, maybe we should know, but we don't get it. So it was a joy to help bring her message. And then I work for scientists too sometimes, who have the science. I write about happiness quite a bit. There's a science behind happiness and a
Yes.
neurology to it, right? And so this
Yes.
wonderful entrepreneur that I worked with, who's a leadership in that space, brilliant lady, just really, it can be dry, right? And we don't want dry. We don't
Yeah.
we want something that's like any
Fun and
story.
sexy and engaging.
Yeah, any story is an emotional journey. Every good story, not any story, but every good story is an emotional journey. So that's a book, that's a screenplay, that's a post even that you write, or something you send in the email. It's really got to have a heartbeat. And so the science is important though. And so we blend all these worlds and we create a narrative that really resonates with people.
I
Yeah,
love that. It sounds like quite the journey. So
it is. Yeah.
if I like, let's just play role play. Is that how you say
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah,
Role
totally.
play. So
Yeah.
let's say I'm coming to you, Laura. I have this amazing idea, but ugh, what do I do with it? How
Right.
does this like where
Well,
where do we go from there?
yeah, so this is great, and it's kind of what I wanted to talk about is, like, giving these tips about how to overcome probably the 3 biggest mistakes people make when they're trying to write a book or a screenplay for that matter,
Yeah.
and I
Let's
think
take it big.
okay, right? So, the first one is really a lack of confidence.
Oh,
It's either a lack of confidence in the story they're gonna tell, maybe their message, even a deeper lack of confidence, like they know they're not so sure maybe their message is as important as they think it is. And they think the story, it may be too big to tell. So it's this confidence aspect, right?
yeah.
And so, the impact of having that mistake in your mind is that that particular individual will never tell their story.
Yeah.
It could be that bad, right? Like,
Right.
and to me there's really no bigger tragedy than a story untold, because we live a certain amount of time, right, in this,
Oh my god. I don't even
right?
wanna get on my soapbox, but anyone who's ever like
Yeah,
I say it all the time. We have this one life.
we do. We do. Yeah, we do. And if you let yourself get in this trap of no confidence, then the impact is that it's going to sit in a drawer or an attic or pick the place. I've talked to so many people that, like, I had this thing, it's been laying around, and so the thing that we need to do differently when we have this lack of confidence is that lack of confidence really isn't around the project or your mission or anything. It's really just around that you're doing something new, not something impossible.
Right.
And
It's a
it's
beautiful breakdown.
amazing how our brain will just sort of trick us and be like, no, it's not impossible. It's not. And we do new things all the time. So that's the first mistake that I see all the time. And then the other one, can be, for certain people, they get bogged down in research,
Well,
which
it's safe, right? So it almost ties into your first hiccup.
exactly. It's a lure. It's got a lure to it.
Mhm.
Research is kind of fun. Well, some people don't like it, but some people really like it. And it's almost like you don't know when to turn it off. It's like research
100%.
leads to research leads to research. And you just think, it's just like this beautiful thing, that you just can't stop doing, but that's not writing the book, right?
Right.
So, and then sometimes, well, it gets you confused sometimes too, because sometimes the research will lead you here or there, and you don't know what to pick, so you stop, or it can lead to a lot of confusion. And so the impact of that is a little bit of like endless editing to your manuscript. It's a little bit of frustration. It's a little bit of, not failure to progress, I would say.
Right.
And so the thing that we can do differently when we meet this particular mistake is to, set a deadline. And it's an incredible freeing way to come to your research. You research for a certain amount of time, and it breaks the allure. And when people work with me, I have a researcher on staff that helps. So you don't have to do it alone, right? So
Mhm.
it's great. And reach out to people. I can't even tell you how much that speeds the process. A lot of people think, writing is like you kind of do it alone sometimes. A lot of it you do alone, but in research you can, just, contact everybody, have people help you and support you. So that is a thing. People get bogged down in research. That's a second thing. And then the third thing is just not being able to organize all their notes and their timelines, and things like are here and there, and they're just everywhere. And the impact for that is the too bad part about that is when we're not organized, we really can't find the narrative arc. We can't find that heartbeat that I was telling you about, that
Right.
emotional ride. Like a story, really, a book, a screenplay that's going to affect people. It doesn't matter, if it's nonfiction, fiction, it's got to hit them at the heart. So when you've got everything all over the place, it's really hard to find that common thread that's going to really build a story, instead of just a list of things, that people probably aren't going to resonate with and stay with for very long. So
Yeah.
my what people can do differently with that is just find a really good system to organize your notes, and keep them in one place. If they're physical, if they're somewhere, it sounds easy to do, but if you've been working on something for a very long time, odds are you've got something in a folder over here, you've got something in something over here, there's pictures over
Right.
here, there's, so it's really great to put it in a certain spot. And I like Google Docs for that. That's something that
I was gonna say I'm a huge fan of Google Drive, from like
yeah,
the documents, the spreadsheets, to the photos, everything in one place.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
it's shareable, right? That way, I imagine for you, the
Right.
going back and forth helps to keep it structured.
Yeah, it's really a great way to work. And that's a beautiful space of collaboration where, I work with people all over the world. And
Right.
so people wake up, they can do whatever they need to on their own time, honor their process. That's what we do. Everybody has a different creative process. I think it's so funny. Back to the voice again, when we're getting to know our voice, what we're really getting to know is also our creative process. How do we work creatively? Who are we in this creative space? And that's a little bit of what we do together is we meet that, and we're like, oh, this works for me, this time of day works for me, this. So it's very individualized, it's very personal process, because it's as different as every person who writes.
I imagine. And let's actually just talk about your story, if you don't mind. You started in accounting and now you're here.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
did you decide that writing was going to be the avenue? I mean, I know you shared your background here, but like, how did it come to writing? Because really, you could
Well,
have been on TV, you could have been doing so many things.
I know I've done so many things. Well, what happened was, I wrote, I've written for a long, long time, like since I was young, off and on.
Okay.
But I think the thing that really spurred me into ghostwriting specifically was when I was just doing what a lot of people do. They're telling a legacy story for their family. So there was a very important story in my family, and it was my dad's story, and it was a World War II story. And so I was trying and to get, he was a prisoner of war in World War II. And so I was trying to get, because he didn't have the memory, he lost the timeline, he didn't remember the places where he was, and our whole family was involved. It was in the South Pacific. And so there was a mystery there. He didn't talk about it for a very long time, like a lot of people in that world don't. But when he got a little bit older, he planted seeds a little bit, and we essentially had an interview experience for decades. And through that, I learned how to interview people, especially people who've gone through trauma, people who have survived unbelievable things, adventurers as well. And so I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I was just with dad and mom, and we're just talking for years and years and years. And I was just making the story just for our family to try and really figure it out. And really that's what it is. All of us are putting the puzzle together, the puzzle pieces together. And so I have a lot of people who come with stories like that. As a matter of fact, this research, getting back to this research mistake, I think of my a client who had called me and said there were bundles of letters that his dad had written when he was a Marine in World War II. And they didn't know about it until after he died. And they went up into the attic, and there were bundles of these letters, and their family wanted to put together the story of their dad, but they didn't know. They didn't know how to do it. Literally, I think there were 200 letters. And so we helped, we researched, we followed the clues of the letters. We matched where he was. We knew the story of the war. I had a researcher working with it. And it was just this beautiful book for the family. So a lot of people think about bestsellers, and they're fantastic, but so are also these beautiful stories that people have that, they're priceless. They're priceless. You hand it down to your kids. It's a generational piece, right? So,
Right.
and then I work with people that start out that they think it's just a legacy story, but then it does become a bestseller. So, it is very interesting. So what I learned there was the art of the interview, which is
That's
very, very
amazing.
important. Yeah. And then I took that with me all over with the writing. And then I got more and more into writing. Actually, I was at the time in graphic design when I was hired at the LA Times, but I was hired because of my writing, because a lot of writing goes on the fly as you're creating stories as they're developing. And so I got into writing at the LA Times, and I would publish my first travel article with them because I was invited to Romania
Wow.
as an author, because at that time I was an author, to report on them entering the EU. And in typical Romanian style, they invited artists, ethnographers, writers instead of businessmen and scientists and stuff to get the word out about their country. They're very artistic, amazing, wonderfully warm people. And so I had that rich experience. And so my editor, Meredith Artley, asked me to write an article for them. And that was that would sort of set me on a writing career. And I would write for travel for World Travel Magazine, LA Parent, lots of different kinds of magazines. And because I love the sea, I write quite a bit also for yachting and boating and that type of thing. So,
I love how diverse your background is
thank you.
and how much you're able to bring to the table because of it. I think so often people feel shame because they're like, "Oh, I did this and then I did that." I know I had for myself, that's definitely something that
Oh,
I've
yeah.
gotten to work through.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that it is so diverse because you get to bring all of that to the table and you
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
people and you're able to hold space, which I think is really amazing. Being able to hold a space for
Yeah.
others to come and share their story because especially when they're personal,
Oh
It's not
yeah.
easy, right, to be like, "By the way,
No,
Laura,
no,
all this stuff happened to me and now I wanna talk about it." Like, no, man. It's
I
almost at times you relive it, yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that is what I learned with my dad is how can we go to those deeper levels that we need to go to write the story. It doesn't all end up on the page.
Right.
It does not. But we do dig deep. And when there are times where he was unwilling or unable to go to a certain place, he and many people that I work with, he would go to the general history of the time and speak about these general things. So you can only go as far as the subject will allow you to go. But it is important for everyone to get as far as they can in some of these things. So, they know what we're looking at so we can edit out, obviously, again, it doesn't end up on the page, but it's relevant to the story and it's relevant to motivations. It's relevant to the arc. It's relevant because also the most important thing about a story, really good stories, is that the character is very different at the end of the book than at the beginning of the book. We
The
don't
transformation.
really like so much. I mean, there are examples out there of people that we see that really don't change that much, but the transformation's everything. And until you can really mine those memories and really get into this area, you can't really even see your own transformation. And I can't even tell you the transformation with the people I work with as we're working is incredible. It's not only that we create this end product, but inside there's so much transformation that goes on. Like I say, a lot of times we have a lack of confidence, right? And
Yeah.
we're not even really in touch with our own words. By the end, the confidence is there, the words are there, the ability to overcome confusion and frustration. That's powerful. That's real powerful.
Definitely.
And it
And
goes
it's
into all areas of your life, really.
and it's beautiful. See, we're coming to transformation in very different ways, you and I, but at the end, it's about the unpacking and the allowing, right? Because now you've seen this person, you've heard them, and not just physically seen, like you have
Mhm.
seen into their being.
Right,
And
right.
it's almost a sense of, I imagine, like a validation for that person to be heard to that level.
Mhm, mhm.
And
I think
I mean,
so.
my hat's off to you. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, with your
Mm.
work that you're doing. I think the most important thing is that, if this work wasn't done, otherwise the voice wouldn't be heard. And that to me is just, to me is just profound, really
Yeah.
profound. Yeah. And exactly what you said at the beginning of the program. I do work quite a bit with women and minorities. I work with lots of people, of course, but I have a heart for that because for some reason we are uh, not fully stepping into and showing up in our own power as women, in terms of getting our messages out or our voices out. And I, there's all kinds of reasons for that, and we could probably talk about that for 5 hours or whatever.
That'll probably be a whole different episode.
A
Yeah.
whole different episode. Definitely. But I think this is just very fascinating. I think that whole idea of owning who you are, your journey, your message, and not having any shame around it, or
Yeah.
not having any have joy around it, and then the other piece that I think is kind of interesting is um it's fun. I mean,
Oh,
besides we're doing all this other stuff, right? But it's fun. Like it's really a fun process. It doesn't take as much time as some people think, I think that goes to like the frustration part.
yeah.
If you've got it streamlined, if you've got methods in place, like when I work with people, it's like an hour a week of their time. Busy people are writing these books in that time, right? And of course, there's other work that I do, off the calls or whatever. But really, when you really look at the time invested, it's not as much as somebody would think.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. And that's a beautiful point because I think so often people stop before they even get started because, oh, it's going to take too long, which really is, you know, to some degree is an excuse to get themselves out of getting to do it.
Oh yeah.
But I was just talking about this on my last podcast episode. When you're in that flow, you
Mhm.
actually compress time. You hear it all. It's like a whole like
Oh, it's so
pop
true.
culture thing right now where everyone's talking about collapsing time and blah blah blah. But the
Absolutely.
reality is, it happens in the moments where you are just focused on something that well typically brings you joy or that you enjoy. And this is a great example, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is just so spot on.
Like,
So spot on. Definitely. I think that when we make room for, exactly this flow that you're talking about,
yeah.
I call them appointments with my clients' imaginations. So we're
Oh,
regularly checking in,
yeah.
and it lets you connect the dots in different ways. It lets you see things in different ways. And it's not just about the book. It's everywhere in your whole life. Like for instance, I had a client come to me who thought she was delusional because of the book she wanted to write, literally. Like she wanted to marry a book of like fables that we would write in honor of her son who passed away, about a mother's journey through grief. And she wanted to do this, and she just thought, and I'm like, no, this is perfect. When you hear the word fable, it's like, oh my God, I think about Aesop. I'm like, how can you write it? Like, how dare you write a fable? That's for like, people like that, like the old school kind of thing. But we did it, and she got, and then after we wrote the book and everything, she's trying to figure out, oh, I'm never going to be able to get on a show. I'm never going to be able to, no one's going to want to interview me. And like, I mean, she got a blurb written by Deepak Chopra. She's on NPR talking to millions of people. Like, her transformation has just been a complete, utter joy to watch. I mean, and the most amazing part is she's helping women through grief. Anybody really, but
Yeah.
her journey of motherhood through grief is like from grief to joy is fantastic. And her, because she sat there and she would have, I'm going to tell you, it's just as easy. It's easier not to do it than to do it. And here she's done it. She's everywhere. She had no confidence at the beginning, and now she's just a real force, and she's out there just changing lives massively with this wonderful love and action message.
That's beautiful. And for people who are listening and they're like, oh my God, Laura, I need to work with you. How do they find you?
I have a website. It's called laurasmagicday.com. It's all one word.
Okay.
And they can click on the apply button and send me their information, and we'll have a conversation.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that. That is
absolutely.
very streamlined. Talk about simple processes.
Simple
And
process.
for those of you who missed it, we'll definitely be dropping it in the show notes. And before we head out, Laura, what is one thing that you would love for people to really hear today? Not only
Trust,
when it oh, go ahead.
trust yourself. Trust yourself, trust your message, trust your intuition, and go big.
And that's a wrap. For those of you who have been listening and you are just like, oh my God, this is speaking to my soul, definitely reach out. We don't want you to leave this earth with your story still within you. Laura, thank you so much for bringing all of your expertise today. And this was transformational.
Oh,
Thank you so much. And for everyone listening, if there was something that stood out, share it on social and tag us. We want to cheer you on. You'll find all the links in the show notes below. And listen, it's